maybe Chris Christie will change his mind after he hears what Donald Trump said in response to him running for president, and actually the attacks as well. We know that's what triggered the whole thing. So let's go to this, because Chris Christie is running for president, and Donald Trump is mad about the way that he's approaching him. He's very angry about this direct fire. He's punched him in his face. So Donald Trump responded with this over on Truth Social. You can probably imagine the line of attack that Trump might be going with towards Chris Christie. See if you can see it here. Trump says, how many times did Chris Christie use the word small? Of course, he writes it in capital letters. Does he have a psychological problem with size? Actually, his speech was small and not very good. It rambled all over the place, and nobody had a clue of what he was talking about. Hard to watch, boring, but that's what you get from a failed governor. And he has to point out he's from New Jersey. I think Trump maybe forgot and had to look it up. Who left office with a 7% approval rating and then got run out of New Hampshire. This time, it won't be any different. Well, predictions are flying around, but we keep seeing words like small that's accented, size that's accented, small again that's accented. Why does he keep talking about small? Psychological? I think we know where you're going with this, Donnie. But just in case you guys didn't know where he was going with this, he also posted this, which someone else created, but he thought it was great. Watch.
And it was about our country and its future. And I wondered what our choice was going to be. Were we going to be small, or are we going to be big?
Well, there's a edited video there, of course, with buffets in front of Chris Christie as he's holding a full plate. Oh, that's right, because he's overweight. That's what it is. Oh, anytime that someone comes towards Donald Trump with his policies, his failures and things that he's done, it's pretty obvious. If it's a woman, attack her for some part of her looks, probably her face. And if it's an overweight gentleman like Chris Christie, then it's, oh, he eats all the time. Because no one's ever made that joke before. Is this gonna work? I mean, is this gonna work in response? Because I think it kind of worked the first time, Sharon, but I don't know how much people have evolved. And I have some thoughts on that too, but first yours.
It's not gonna work because we've heard it before. It's a bit played out and we're waiting for the next dance craze, okay? They've done that, okay? We're just not interested. And by the way, Donald Trump is large too. Both men are large and that's okay. It's about the policies. And the other part about it is Chris Christie was the governor of what? New Jersey. And when you exist in that little tri-state area, okay, that can be very angry and can curse out Ted Cruz at a Yankees game, he's used to being called names and names that are targeted about the way he looks. And that's not gonna faze him. He'll punch back and it'll be sport for the rest of us to tune into and watch.
I actually think it's gonna come out looking bad for Trump even. And it's odd, we see how conservatives always call people snowflakes for wanting you to respect someone for who they are, what they say, and just their existence. But I feel like there's a fatigue point we've reached. And actually, I think there's an illustration of this. I mean, I know it's not a politician, it's not a Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis where people will bow their heads because they think they're their savior. But over on Fox News, which likes to generate and keep the hate warm at times, John Roberts, the anchor there, was talking about as Chris Christie jumped in. I think this is a bit of an illustration as to maybe even where conservative voters and thinkers and even some other anchors on air feel about this. This is what John Roberts was saying after he got into a bit of a mess. Watch this.
Hey, before we go on, I just want to take a moment to address something because I really do feel terrible about it. Earlier on the show, I was making an analogy to describe the Republican voter pool. And I made a comment that I meant to be lighthearted, but immediately realized was hurtful toward Governor Chris Christie. I should not have said what I said. I deeply regret it, and I sincerely apologize to the governor.
How often do you see that on television, let alone Fox News, where this anchor feels deeply regretful for what he said about Chris Christie as he's announcing? You can probably guess what it was, but I'll go ahead and show you. But I want to point out one thing at the back end of this. There's two other hosts on this panel with John Roberts. And as he gets through his offensive comments, take note of what the woman then said at the back. And I'm sorry I didn't get her name, but take note of her response. And actually both of them, watch.
And to use a modification of a metaphor that we were using in the panel earlier today, it's like you have two milkshakes, right? The Republican Party is two milkshakes. And this one, representing almost half the party, because that's what the polling shows, has got one straw in it, and that's Donald Trump's straw, right? And the other milkshake, which represents the non-Donald Trump part of the Republican Party, has how many straws in it now? And now we're going to have Chris Christie's straw in there. And judging by Chris Christie's physical stature, he could drink a lot of that milkshake if he wanted to. But you're not.
As she said at the end, ouch. And I think it kind of stuck with him. Because again, I mentioned it earlier when I was on TDR Sharon. In order for you to be as hateful and into the stretches that Donald Trump has gotten to with generating hate, bigoted, racist, homophobic, all the things that he's set his whole campaign and presidency on, it's accepted. But it seems like the energy from the other folks on that panel, if it's not accepting, then you're like, oh, I think I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's not like-minded company. I think more and more of these folks don't want to hear this anymore.
Yeah, I think this indoctrination, the Donald Trump indoctrination of really the world, but Americans who think this is normal and okay to behave in this manner, it will shift back. It will have to moonwalk back from that position of normalcy. At the same time, I do think that this could be simply explained as they've dealt with Chris Christie before, and it's not going to be let go. And he probably called the control room and said, I'll spot you that one, but I got you. I got you.
Really?
Yeah, I think they did. They've dealt with him before and they know.
They know the approach to go. I mean, John asked me this as well as far as this field goes. From the way that the way that Christie jumped in here, he's at least giving a different angle and maybe isn't thinking or inspiring others to go, oh, maybe Chris Christie, but not nearly to the degree to win it. But I think he might make a bit of a dent more than he did last time. Hopefully.
I think he's going to make everybody else look weak by doing what he's doing. Pence, all of them will look weaker because Chris Christie's on his toes instead of what they're doing.
And then we'll see his policies and he'll fall apart. Look, I mean, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, all of them were like, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. Openly said it when they announced, I don't want to say anything about Donald Trump. I'm just running against him.